The vintage lace felt like a cage. Isabella Romano stood before the mirror in St. Michael's Cathedral's bridal suite, her grandmother's wedding dress catching the afternoon light through stained glass windows. She looked ethereal, untouchable, like every bride's dream. She felt like she was drowning. 20 minutes until she married Derek Mitchell. 20 minutes until she locked herself into the safe, carefully constructed life she'd built after her parents' death 10 years ago. A life designed for stability. No surprises. No heartbreak. The makeup artist dabbed at her own eyes. "You're so beautiful. Derek's going to lose his mind." Isabella's hands trembled as she reached for her bouquet. White roses and peonies, her grandmother's silk ribbon. Every tradition followed, every detail perfect. She was one of Boston's top event planners. Control was her specialty. Her phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. Jade, her maid of honor and best friend since college, grabbed it. The joy on her face crumbled like sand. "That absolute bastard," Jade whispered. The bouquet slipped from Isabella's fingers. White petals scattered across marble like snow. "What?" "He's not coming." Jade's hands shook as she held out the phone. "Bella, he's not coming." The message was from Connor, Derek's best man. Not from Derek himself. "Derek asked me to send this. He couldn't do it himself. I'm so sorry, Isabella." Below it, a photograph. Derek's precise handwriting on hotel stationery. "Isabella, I can't do this. I'm sorry. You deserve better than what I can give you. I'm not the man you think I am. I can't stand at that altar knowing I'd be lying with every vow. Please forgive me." Derek, the room tilted. Isabella's knees buckled. Jade caught her before she hit the floor. The makeup artist sobbed. Outside, 200 guests were taking their seats. The string quartet playing Vivaldi, the coordinator managing controlled chaos. A wedding that would never happen. "I'm going to kill him," Jade said. "How dare he do this to you?" 200 people. Isabella's voice sounded hollow. "Everyone I know is out there. Forget them. We cancel. You don't owe anyone anything." The door opened. Isabella's father stepped inside, distinguished in his tuxedo, ready to walk his daughter down the aisle. One look at the scattered flowers and Isabella's face told him everything. "No," he said. "Tell me he didn't. He sent a note. Through Connor." Her father's expression transformed into cold fury. "Where is he? I'll drag him here myself." "Dad." Isabella straightened, something hardening in her chest. "He doesn't want to marry me." The humiliation crawled up her spine like ice water. A year planning this wedding. A year of details and decisions. She'd built her business on creating perfect moments, and now her own wedding was imploding. "I'll tell them," her father said quietly. "You shouldn't have to face that." "No." Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "I'll do it myself." "Bella, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." Derek was a coward. "I won't be." She met his eyes. "Those people gave up their Saturday. The least I can do is tell them the truth with dignity." Jade's voice cracked. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Isabella checked her reflection. The bride looked composed, controlled. Only her eyes revealed the pain. "How do I look?" "Like you're about to walk into battle." "Good. That's exactly what this is." The walk to the cathedral entrance felt endless. She could hear conversation from the sanctuary, the quartet, 200 people waiting. The coordinator appeared, tablet in hand. "Miss Romano, we're ready when—" She stopped, registering something wrong. "Is everything okay?" "Open the doors," Isabella said quietly. "I'm sorry." "Open the doors. Please." The coordinator looked to Isabella's father, to Jade, found only grim confirmation. Professional training took over. She signaled her assistant. The quartet shifted to Pachelbel's canon. The doors opened. 200 faces turned. Smiles and anticipation. Isabella's father tried once more to take her arm. She shook her head. This she had to do alone. The walk down the aisle was the longest of her life. No bouquet, no father, just her and ivory lace and increasingly confused guests. She kept her chin high, pace measured. Event planner training. Never let them see the panic. Whispers started in the back rows, building as she passed. Where was Derek? Why was she alone? Her aunt's hand flew to her mouth. The groomsmen shifted uncomfortably, Connor looking stricken. Each step burned with humiliation. But she didn't stop, didn't falter, gave them nothing except dignity. She reached the altar. Father Michael's expression shifted from welcoming to alarmed. The sanctuary fell silent. Isabella turned to face the congregation. 200 staring faces. "Thank you all for being here," she began, voice steady. "I know you're confused. I'm standing here alone because—" Her voice cracked. Just for a second. Everyone heard it. "Derek isn't coming. He's chosen not to marry me today." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone's purse hit the floor. Her aunt started crying. The whispers became a roar. "I'm sorry you traveled. I'll marry you." The voice came from the back. Deep, certain, cutting through chaos like a knife. Every head turned. A man rose from the last pew. Isabella's breath caught. She knew who he was. Everyone knew Dante Salvatore. Mid-30s, powerfully built, impeccably tailored suit, presence that commanded attention. Dark hair, striking features, intelligent eyes. Dangerous. He walked down the aisle with absolute confidence. People leaned away as he passed, recognizing power and danger. Whispers exploded. "That's Dante Salvatore. The Salvatore family. He's Mafia." The Salvatore family owned half of Boston's waterfront. Legitimate businesses layered over operations in shadows and rumors. He reached the altar. Up close, more imposing. Dark eyes met hers, and electricity shot down her spine. "You need a husband," he said quietly. "I need a wife. Let's not waste the venue." Isabella's mind went blank. This couldn't be real. "Why?" she asked. "Because I don't leave women humiliated at altars." A pause. "And because I have my reasons. You don't even know me. I know you walked down this aisle alone when you could have sent someone else. That tells me what I need to know." His eyes weren't unkind. Calculating, strategic, but not cruel. This wasn't mockery. She looked past him. Saw her father's horror. Jade's shock. Clients whispering. The pity in every face. Then back at Dante. The man who'd stood when no one else would. "Do you have the rings?" she heard herself ask. Something shifted in his eyes. Respect, maybe. He produced a velvet box with a simple platinum band. "I came prepared." Of course he had. He'd planned this. The realization should have terrified her. "Father Michael," Dante said, "I believe you have a ceremony to perform." Father Michael looked between them. "This is highly irregular." Dante made a subtle gesture. Father Michael's protest died. He nodded. "If both parties consent freely." 200 people held their breath. Isabella thought about Derek's cowardly note. About the safe life she'd almost settled for. About her parents dying young. Teaching her safety was an illusion anyway. "Yes," she said clearly. "I consent." Dante took her hand. His palm was warm, grip firm. "Then let's begin." The ceremony proceeded in a haze. When her turn came, Isabella looked into Dante's eyes. "I, Isabella, take you, Dante, to be my husband." Dante's voice was steady. "I, Dante, take you, Isabella, to be my wife." No hesitation. The ring slid onto her finger. Cool platinum. When she placed his band, her hands barely trembled. "You may kiss the bride," Father Michael said. Dante stepped closer, hand cupping her face with surprising gentleness. Thumb brushing her cheekbone. A question in his eyes. Isabella nodded. The kiss was meant to be brief. But the moment his lips touched hers, something shifted. It lingered, deepened. When they broke apart, both looked surprised. The cathedral erupted. Shocked applause, nervous laughter, 200 people processing the impossible. Isabella Romano had become Isabella Salvatore in 20 minutes. Married to a stranger. Dante's arm slid around her waist. He leaned down, lips brushing her ear. We need to talk. Tonight. About what this really means. Isabella looked up at her new husband, at the intelligence in those dark eyes, and realized she'd either just saved herself from humiliation or walked straight into something far more dangerous than she could imagine. But she'd said yes. And there was no going back now. The reception had been surreal. Isabella moved through it like she was watching herself from outside her body. Dante handled everything with smooth efficiency, introducing her as my wife to shocked guests who didn't know whether to congratulate or condole. Her father had pulled her aside twice, demanding to know if she was being coerced. Jade had threatened to call the police. And through it all, Dante remained perfectly composed, his hand a steady presence at the small of her back. Now, sitting in the back of Dante's car as it glided through Boston streets, reality was beginning to set in. She'd married a stranger, a dangerous stranger, and she was heading to his home with no idea what happened next. The penthouse occupied the top floor of a building overlooking the harbor. Old-world elegance met modern security in a way that should have clashed but somehow worked. Dark wood paneling, leather furniture, art that looked museum quality. But Isabella's trained eye caught the cameras hidden in crown molding, the reinforced door, the subtle tension in the two men who'd followed them up in the elevator. Security, Dante said, following her gaze. They'll stay in the outer rooms. You won't see them unless there's a problem. And are there often problems? Not if I can help it. He shrugged off his jacket, poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter. You should sit. We need to talk about what this actually is. Isabella's dress rustled as she perched on the edge of an expensive leather chair. She accepted the whiskey but didn't drink. I'm listening. Dante sat across from her, elbows on his knees, studying her with those dark, intelligent eyes. This marriage is legally binding, real in every way that matters to the state. But what it means between us, that's something we decide. You planned this. It wasn't a question. The ring. The readiness. You came to that church intending to do exactly what you did. Yes and no. He took a sip of whiskey. I came prepared for a possibility. Whether I'd act on it depended on you. Explain. He leaned back, and Isabella saw calculation mixed with something that might have been vulnerability. My father built the Salvatore empire from nothing. Construction, shipping, real estate. Some of it legitimate, some of it in gray areas, some of it definitively not. He died 6 months ago. Heart attack. Sudden. I'm sorry. Don't be. We had a complicated relationship. Dante's jaw tightened. But his death left me in a difficult position. I'm 35, unmarried, no heirs. In the world I operate in, that makes me look weak. Unfocused. Like I'm not thinking about legacy, about building something that lasts. Isabella began to understand. Rival families see an opening. Exactly. Traditional families respect men with wives, with children on the way, with something to protect and pass down. Bachelors are viewed as unstable, temporary, easy to push aside. He met her eyes. I'd been negotiating an arranged marriage with the daughter of a connected family. It would have solved my problems, strengthened alliances, given me the appearance of stability I needed. What happened? She eloped last week with her graduate school boyfriend. Left a note. Sound familiar? A bitter smile crossed his face. When I heard about your wedding, about Derek Mitchell getting cold feet, I saw an opportunity. A woman publicly humiliated who might be desperate enough to take an unconventional offer. The blunt honesty stung, but Isabella appreciated it more than false romance. So I was convenient. You were practical. Dante stood, paced to the window overlooking the glittering harbor. But when I saw you walk down that aisle alone, When I heard your voice crack and watched you refuse to let it break you completely, it became something more than convenience. What? He turned back to her. Respect. Admiration. The sense that you were someone who understood that sometimes you have to make hard choices to survive. A pause. And maybe a little bit of protectiveness I wasn't expecting. Isabella's heart beat faster. What exactly are you proposing? The real terms. A year-long contract marriage. Dante's voice became businesslike. You live here, appear at events as my wife, play the role publicly. In return, I provide security, financial support, connections that could help your business grow. No physical relationship required unless we both agree. After 1 year, if we want out, quiet divorce. You keep a substantial financial settlement regardless. How substantial? $2 million. Plus whatever business growth you achieve in that year. Isabella's breath caught. $2 million would secure her future. Let her expand her business without crushing debt. Give her the kind of freedom she'd never imagined. And if I want out before the year is up? Prorated settlement. But I'd ask you to try to make it the full year. For appearances. She stood, paced to the opposite window, needing distance to think. Am I in danger? From your enemies. Not from me. From them. Dante's voice was honest. Potentially. That's why you'll have security everywhere you go. Marco, my head of security, is the best. He'll keep you safe. What do you actually do, Dante? What are these businesses? Legitimate operations make up about 70% of revenue now. Construction, real estate development, import companies. The other 30% exists in gray areas or crosses lines I'm not proud of. He met her eyes without flinching. I'm trying to transition fully legitimate. But you don't just walk away from certain operations without consequences. Isabella processed this. Why not tell me all this before the ceremony? Why marry first, negotiate after? Would you have believed me? Would you have said yes if a stranger approached you in that bridal suite with this proposal? Dante's expression was wry. You were vulnerable, humiliated, surrounded by people who knew you. I needed the marriage to happen first, then we could discuss terms in private. That's manipulation. Yes, it is. No apology in his voice. I won't lie to you, Isabella. I needed this marriage. I did what I had to do to make it happen. But I'm giving you a choice now about what it means going forward. She turned back to him. What if I fall in love with someone else during this year? The pause was longer this time. Something flickered in Dante's eyes, quickly controlled. Then we renegotiate. I won't trap you in a loveless marriage if your heart is elsewhere. And you? What if you fall in love? I don't do love. Simple. Absolute. I do loyalty, respect, partnership. Love is a luxury I can't afford. The honesty was almost brutal. But Isabella found herself respecting it more than pretty lies. She looked around the penthouse at the life she'd accidentally fallen into. Thought about Derek's cowardly note, her ruined reputation, the pity she'd face walking back into her old life. Or she could be the woman who married Dante Salvatore on impulse. That was power, mystery, intrigue, not pity. Show me the master suite, she said finally. Dante's expression remained controlled, but she saw satisfaction flash in his eyes. He led her down a hallway to a room that was elegant without being ostentatious. Silk sheets, understated luxury, a view of the harbor that took her breath away. This is yours, he said. I'll take the guest room. Maintaining boundaries. You're not expecting. No. I'm expecting nothing beyond what we agree to. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, your ex-fiancé is an idiot. You don't even know me. I know you walked down that aisle alone. That takes spine. His dark eyes met hers. Get some rest, Isabella. Tomorrow we start navigating this new reality. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Isabella stood in the center of her new bedroom, still in her grandmother's wedding dress, and tried to process the day. She'd been abandoned at the altar, married a Mafia boss, and agreed to a year-long contract marriage with a stranger. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt something that might have been hope. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a confused moment, Isabella forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back. The wedding. Dante. Everything. She found clothes in the closet, designer pieces in her exact size. Either incredibly good guessing or he'd done research. The thought should have been creepy. Instead, it confirmed what she already knew. Dante Salvatore was thorough. She found him in the kitchen, dressed casually in dark slacks and a white shirt, making espresso. The domesticity was jarring. "Coffee?" he offered. "Please." They sat at the kitchen island, and Dante outlined logistics. Security protocols. Financial arrangements. The calendar of events she'd need to attend. It was businesslike, practical, easier than the emotional weight of the night before. "My people need to meet you," he said. "Marco, my head of security. Lucia, who manages the household. Enzo, my consigliere." "Your what?" "Advisor. Right hand. He'll be skeptical of you. Everyone will be skeptical of me." "Yes." Dante's honesty was refreshing. "But I'm asking them to respect you as my wife. My word is law in this family." The meetings were exactly as uncomfortable as Isabella expected. Marco was professional but wary, asking pointed questions about her background. Lucia was warmer, an older Italian woman who'd clearly known Dante's mother. Enzo was cold, calculating, clearly viewing Isabella as a potential threat. "And tonight," Dante said after they'd left, "my grandmother wants to meet you." Isabella's stomach dropped. "Tonight? She's formidable. Fair warning." Nana Salvatore arrived at 6, a tiny woman in her 80s with steel in her spine and intelligence in her sharp eyes. She looked Isabella up and down with barely concealed skepticism. "So," she said in rapid Italian, "you're the girl who married my grandson in a moment of desperation." Isabella answered in fluent Italian, her grandmother's Tuscan dialect. "And you're the grandmother who raised a man who offers marriage proposals to strangers." Surprise flickered across Nana's face. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. "You speak Italian. My grandmother taught me. She's from Florence." "Ah!" Nana's expression shifted, assessment giving way to cautious approval. She switched to English. "You have fire. Good. Dante needs someone who won't be intimidated." She turned to Dante, back to Italian. "This one has spine. Don't waste it." After she left, Isabella felt drained. "Did I pass? With flying colors?" Dante's smile was genuine. "Get dressed. We have a gala tonight. First public appearance as Mr. and Mrs. Salvatore." "What kind of gala?" "Charity. Business. The kind where Boston's elite gather to see and be seen." His expression darkened. "Rival families will be there. Watching. Assessing. We need to be convincing." Isabella stood. "Then I better find something stunning to wear." That evening, standing beside Dante in a black gown that hugged every curve, Isabella felt every eye in the room on them. Whispers followed their entrance. The Salvatore marriage was the scandal everyone wanted to discuss. And then she saw him, Derek, standing near the bar with a blonde woman, her hand protective on her slightly rounded stomach. Isabella's world tilted. That was why he'd run. Not cold feet. Pregnancy. Dante's hand found the small of her back, steadying her. "That's him." "Yes," Isabella whispered. "And apparently the reason he left." Derek saw them. His face went white. The blonde woman looked confused. And as Derek started walking toward them, Isabella realized this night was about to get much more complicated. Derek's approach was hesitant, guilty, the walk of a man who knew he deserved whatever was coming. The blonde woman beside him, pretty, young, hand protective over a barely visible baby bump, looked confused. Isabella felt Dante's hand tighten on her waist, possessive and protective at once. Bella, Derek started, his voice strained. I can explain. You already did. Isabella's voice was cool, controlled. In a note. On our wedding day. I didn't know how to tell you. Sarah and I, it just happened. And when we found out she was pregnant. So you ran. Isabella cut him off. Like a coward. You couldn't even face me. Derek's eyes flicked to Dante, recognition and fear warring on his face. Everyone in Boston knew who Dante Salvatore was. I never meant to hurt you. You have 5 seconds to walk away. Dante's voice was quiet, dangerous, the kind of calm that preceded violence. 5. 4. Derek went pale. I'm sorry, Bella. I really am. 3. Derek grabbed Sarah's arm and retreated. Isabella watched them go, expecting to feel something. Pain, anger, loss. Instead, she felt nothing. Just relief that she hadn't married him, hadn't locked herself into that safe, suffocating life. Are you okay? Dante's voice was softer now, just for her. Better than okay. Isabella turned to him with a genuine smile. I think I just realized I dodged a bullet. Several bullets. Dante's thumb traced small circles on her waist. Dance with me. Everyone's watching. They moved to the dance floor, and Isabella was hyper-aware of every point of contact. Dante's hand on her back, warm through the thin fabric of her gown. The way he held her close enough to be possessive but not inappropriate. The strength in his frame as he led her through the steps. You're good at this, she murmured. My mother insisted I learn. Said a man who couldn't dance was a man without grace. His lips quirked. She had very specific ideas about what made a gentleman. Tell me about her. Something softened in Dante's expression. She was elegant, strong, everything my father wasn't. She tried to civilize him, civilize this life. Mostly failed, but she never stopped trying. She'd be proud of you. Trying to go legitimate. She'd say I'm moving too slowly. He spun Isabella smoothly. That I should have the courage to walk away completely. Would she be right? Probably. His dark eyes met hers. But courage and survival aren't always compatible. Isabella laughed at something he whispered, and realized with a start that it was genuine. Not performance. The line between acting and reality was blurring. Well, a voice cut through the moment. The happy newlyweds. Dante's expression hardened. Victor Castellano was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and cold eyes that assessed Isabella like she was a piece on a chessboard. Quite the whirlwind romance, Dante. One wonders about its authenticity. Isabella felt the test in those words, the challenge. She smiled, channeling every bit of the social grace her mother had taught her before she died. Love isn't convenient, Mr. Castellano. It's inevitable. She leaned into Dante slightly. When you know. Victor's eyes narrowed, reassessing. Indeed. How fortunate that you knew at such a convenient moment. Fortunate for me, Isabella said smoothly. Less fortunate for my ex-fiancé, who's discovering what he lost. Dante's hand tightened on her waist, approval in the gesture. Victor studied them both, then nodded slowly. Welcome to the family, Mrs. Salvatore. I hope you're prepared for what that means. After he walked away, Dante leaned down. That was impressive. I told you. I'm good at my job. Creating the right impression is what I do. This isn't your job anymore. No. Isabella met his eyes. This is my life now. The words hung between them, heavier than either expected. Back at the penthouse, they stood on the terrace overlooking the harbor, the city lights spreading below like fallen stars. Dante poured wine, handed her a glass. The night air was cool, but Isabella felt warm, energized, still riding the adrenaline of the evening. You were incredible tonight, Dante said. With Derek, with Victor, with everyone. You played the role perfectly. So did you. Isabella sipped her wine. Almost made me believe it was real. Long pause. Dante's eyes on her were intense, searching. Who says it has to be fake? Isabella's breath caught. The contract says we decide what this is. He moved closer, not touching but close enough that she felt his presence like heat. What if we decided it could be more? That's dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. His voice was low, rough. But I'm tired of pretending that what I feel when I touch you is just for show. Isabella's heart pounded. Dante, we don't have to decide tonight. He stepped back, giving her space. Just think about it. The next weeks passed in a blur of growing intimacy. Week 1, they maintained careful distance. Separate bedrooms, polite conversation. Week 2, breakfast discussions lingered. They talked about books, about Isabella's childhood, about Dante's mother. Week 3, he showed her his mother's rooftop garden. Plants she'd loved that he still tended himself. Week 4, Isabella video called her grandmother in Florence, and Dante sat beside her, charming the old woman in perfect Italian. The walls between them were crumbling. Dante took her to a business meeting, legitimate real estate development on the waterfront. Isabella watched him negotiate, saw the respect he commanded, the fairness in his dealings. This was the man he was trying to become. But later that evening, passing his office, she heard different voices. Harsher. A discussion about territories, about rivals encroaching, about handling the problem permanently. She heard Dante's voice, cold and commanding in a way that made her stomach turn. This was the man he still was. She waited until the meeting ended, until his men left. Then she pushed open his office door. You said mostly legitimate businesses, she said without preamble. Dante's expression closed off. You were eavesdropping. I was walking to the kitchen. Your men aren't exactly quiet. Isabella crossed her arms. Who are you planning to handle permanently? Dante? That's not your concern. I'm your wife. It's absolutely my concern. You're my contract wife. His voice went hard. This is the world I operate in, Isabella. You knew what I was. Knowing intellectually and seeing it are different. Her voice rose. You talk about going legitimate, about building something better, but you're still ordering people hurt, or worse. You think I don't know that? Dante slammed his hand on the desk. You think I'm proud of every choice I make? My father built this empire on violence and fear. I'm trying to transition out, but you don't just walk away. Rivals see weakness. People die. Everything I've built collapses. So you're trapped. We're all trapped by our choices. His anger deflated into something raw. I'm doing the best I can with the legacy I inherited. Isabella saw it then. The burden he carried, the impossible position of trying to be better while maintaining enough ruthlessness to survive. Show me, she said quietly. What? Show me all of it. If I'm your wife, even temporarily, I deserve to see the whole truth. Dante studied her for a long moment. Then he unlocked a drawer, pulled out ledgers. Showed her the breakdown. 70% legitimate revenue, 25% gray areas, 5% clearly illegal but decreasing each quarter. I'm trying, he said. Every quarter I shift more operations legitimate. But it's slow. Strategic. One wrong move and I lose everything. Isabella looked at the numbers, saw the pattern. You're building an exit strategy. Yes, but it'll take years. He met her eyes. Can you live with that? With knowing what I am while I'm trying to become something else? She should have said no. Should have maintained the distance the contract required. Instead, she reached for him, pulled him down to her level, and kissed him. The kiss was nothing like their chaste wedding kiss. This was hunger and acceptance and something deeper neither wanted to name. Dante's hands found her waist, pulled her closer. Isabella's fingers tangled in his hair. They barely made it to his bedroom. Clothes shed between kisses, hands exploring, learning. When Dante laid her on his bed, his eyes asked the question his mouth couldn't form. Yes, Isabella whispered. I'm sure. Afterward, lying tangled in silk sheets, Dante's arm around her, Isabella felt the weight of what they'd just done. The contract was supposed to protect them, keep emotions safe. But there was nothing safe about the way her heart raced when he touched her. This changes things, Dante said into the darkness. I know. I don't do love, Isabella. I told you that. I know that too. She pressed closer. But maybe we can figure out what we do. His arm tightened around her. For the first time since his father died, Dante let himself sleep without his guard fully up. The explosion woke them at dawn. Dante was on his feet instantly, pulling on pants, grabbing a gun from the nightstand Isabella hadn't known was there. Stay here. What's happening? Car bomb. Garage. His face was granite, fury tightly controlled. Someone tried to kill me. Marco burst through the door. Boss, you need to see this. The garage was chaos. Dante's car, or what was left of it, was twisted metal and shattered glass. Only the early security sweep had saved him. If he'd been in that car, someone knew the protocols, Marco said grimly. Knew when you usually leave, knew the security patterns. Dante's expression went cold. Inside job. Isabella stood in the doorway, watching her husband transform into something dangerous, something that reminded her exactly what world she'd married into. He turned to her, his eyes apologetic but determined. Pack a bag. You're going to the safe house. No. Isabella, this isn't negotiable. Someone just tried to kill me, and they might come after you to hurt me. Then we figure this out together. She lifted her chin. I'm not hiding while someone tries to murder my husband. This just became real, Dante said. This isn't a contract anymore. This is life and death. Then stop treating me like I can't handle it. Isabella met his eyes. We're partners. Remember, something shifted in Dante's expression. Respect, fear, acceptance. Partners, he agreed. But you follow Marco's security protocols exactly. Deal. As the sun rose over Boston, Isabella realized the game had changed. Someone wanted Dante dead. And now, as his wife, she was a target too. The contract marriage had just become something far more dangerous. The safe house was a fortress disguised as a suburban home. Reinforced walls, panic room, enough supplies to survive a siege. Marco had the location queued up on his phone. Security team ready to transport Isabella within the hour. She stood in Dante's office, arms crossed, chin lifted in defiance. No, Isabella, this isn't up for debate. Dante's voice was tight with controlled fear, the kind that came from seeing your car blown to pieces and realizing you should have been inside it. Someone just tried to kill me. They might come after you next. Then we figure out who and stop them. Together. This isn't the arrangement we agreed to. The arrangement changed the moment someone tried to murder you. Isabella stepped closer, held his gaze. I'm your wife. We face this together, or what's the point of any of it? Dante's jaw clenched. She saw the war in his eyes, the instinct to protect her battling against respect for her choice. Finally, he turned to Marco. Double her security. She doesn't go anywhere without 2 men. I want eyes on her 24/7. Marco nodded, though his expression said he thought Isabella was insane. Maybe she was, but she'd meant what she said. The contract was gone. This was real now. Within the hour, Marco had assembled the facts in Dante's office. Bomb was sophisticated. Military-grade explosive, remote detonator, placed precisely to cause maximum damage. Whoever did this knew your schedule, your routes, the garage security protocols. Inside job, Dante said flatly. Has to be. I've narrowed it to 8 people with the necessary access and knowledge. Marco pulled up files on his tablet. All long-term, trusted employees. No obvious red flags. Isabella studied the names over Dante's shoulder. She recognized some from the past month. Men who nodded respectfully when she passed, who'd been with the Salvatore family for years. Someone's lying, Dante said. Someone I trust is trying to kill me. The next 3 days were a blur of investigation. Dante handled interrogations, street intelligence, pressure on his network of informants. But it was Isabella who noticed what he missed. She sat in the war room they'd set up in Dante's office, surrounded by schedules, security logs, personnel files. Her event-planning brain, trained to track 1,000 details simultaneously, found the pattern. "The security rotations are wrong," she said on the third evening. Dante looked up from his conversation with Enzo. "What?" "Here." Isabella pulled up 2 documents side by side. The official schedule shows Garcia on night duty in the garage last Tuesday, but the actual log shows Rodriguez. Small discrepancy, but it's there. And here, she pointed to another date. Same thing. Someone's been manipulating the schedule to create windows. Dante moved to her side, studying the screens. "How long has this been going on?" "At least 3 months. Maybe longer." Isabella cross-referenced another file. "And look who has access to modify both the official schedule and the actual logs." The name made Dante go still. "No. Matteo." Isabella's voice was gentle. "Your cousin. He's the only one with access to both systems. Matteo's been with me since we were kids." Dante's voice was rough. "He stood beside me when my father died. He helped me build this." "I know." Isabella pulled up another screen. "But look at this. Financial records. Matteo has gambling debts. Significant ones. To people connected with the Castellano family." The evidence spread before them like a map of betrayal. Dante stared at it, and Isabella watched something break in him. Trust, maybe. The certainty that family meant safety. "Not Matteo," he whispered. "Anyone but him." They brought Matteo in the next morning. He arrived smiling, unsuspecting, greeting Isabella warmly before taking the seat Dante indicated. Then he saw their faces, the files on the desk, and his expression crumbled. "I can explain," he started. "Then explain." Dante's voice was ice. "Explain why you've been manipulating security schedules. Explain the gambling debts. Explain why my car exploded 3 days ago." "Dante, I never wanted." Matteo's hands shook. "They have Sofia. The Castellanos have my daughter." The room went silent. Isabella's heart clenched. Sofia was 7 years old, sweet and shy, the goddaughter Dante doted on. "When?" Dante asked. 2 weeks ago. She was walking home from school, and they just took her. Matteo's voice broke. "They said if I didn't cooperate, if I didn't give them your schedule and security protocols, they'd kill her. What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to come to me," Dante said, but his voice had lost some of its edge. "We're family, Matteo. I would have helped. They said if I told you, she'd die. They said they had someone inside your organization, that they'd know if I talked." Matteo looked at Isabella. "Then you got married, and everything changed. Security got tighter. They got desperate, pushed me to give them the opening for the bomb." "I'm sorry, Dante. I'm so sorry." Isabella watched Dante struggle with the choice. In his world, betrayal meant death. It didn't matter why. But she also saw the man he was trying to become, the one who chose mercy when he could. She spoke before he could. "Then we get her back." Both men turned to her. Dante's eyes were dark with conflict. "Isabella, they took a child to force compliance. That's unacceptable." Isabella looked at Matteo. "Where is she?" "Castellano compound. North side. They're keeping her in the house, guarded." Matteo's voice held desperate hope. "If you could get her out." "We will." Isabella turned to Dante. "Won't we?" Dante studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Marco, assemble the team." The operation took 2 days to plan. Castellano's compound was a fortress, but Isabella's analytical mind found the weaknesses. Guard rotations, camera blind spots, entry points. They built a strategy around precision and speed. "You stay in the command vehicle," Dante said the night before. You coordinate communications, monitor the cameras, but you do not leave that vehicle. Non-negotiable. Isabella wanted to argue but saw the fear beneath his authority. Okay. The operation launched at 2 a.m. Dante's team moved like shadows, Isabella tracking their progress on multiple screens in the command vehicle parked 2 blocks away. Marco was beside her, communicating with the team through encrypted channels. Alpha team in position. Beta team breaching south entrance. Everything proceeded according to plan. Isabella watched Dante on bodycam footage, leading his team through corridors with tactical precision. They reached the room where Sofia was supposedly kept. Then hell broke loose. Ambush! Someone shouted over comms. It's a trap. Gunfire erupted. On the screens, Isabella watched Castellano's men pour from hidden positions. Dante's team was pinned down, outmaneuvered. They'd known. Somehow they'd known. Matteo told them, Marco said grimly. The rescue plan. He betrayed us again. Isabella's blood went cold. On screen, she watched Dante take cover, returning fire, but the situation was deteriorating. Men were falling. They were outnumbered. We need to pull back, Marco said into his calm. Boss, you need to retreat. Not without the girl. Dante's voice came back, strained. Isabella scanned the cameras, her event planning brain processing patterns, finding solutions. There, a back entrance, unguarded because Castellano thought all of Dante's forces were at the front. And in the basement, visible on a camera feed, a small figure huddled in the corner. Sofia. There's another way in, Isabella said. Back entrance, southwest corner. No guards. Negative. Dante's voice was sharp. Too risky to split forces. Isabella looked at the screen showing Dante pinned down, at Sofia terrified and alone, at the operation falling apart. Every logical thought said stay in the vehicle, stay safe, let the professionals handle it. But love wasn't logical. She grabbed a protective vest from the supply locker, pulled it on over her civilian clothes. Mrs. Salvatore, what are you doing? Marco grabbed her arm. Getting that little girl. Isabella pulled free. Dante can't reach her from his position. I can. The boss will kill me. He has to survive first. Isabella grabbed the blueprints. Cover me or don't, but I'm going. She ran before Marco could stop her, 2 of Dante's men following at a sprint. The compound was chaos, gunfire, shouting, smoke. Isabella used the back entrance exactly as she'd planned, slipping through while attention focused on the main battle. The basement was dark, dank. Sofia sat in a corner, hands zip-tied, tears streaming down her face. When she saw Isabella, hope and terror warred in her expression. I'm here to take you home, Isabella whispered, cutting the zip ties with a knife one of the guards handed her. Your papa sent me. Your Uncle Dante's wife, Sofia whispered. I saw you at Sunday dinner. That's right. And we're going to get you out of here. They almost made it. Isabella had Sofia's hand, was leading her toward the exit, when 2 of Castellano's men appeared in the corridor. Their guns came up. Isabella pushed Sofia behind her, the protective vest suddenly feeling very inadequate. Stay behind me. On his body cam, Dante saw her. Isabella. In the compound. In danger. His wife, facing armed men, protecting Matteo's daughter with her own body. The fear that flooded him was primal, absolute. He'd faced death 100 times without flinching. But seeing Isabella in danger unmade him completely. He fought through Castellano's men with renewed fury, something savage and desperate unleashing inside him. Nothing mattered except reaching her. His team followed, feeding off his intensity. He burst into the corridor to see Isabella cornered, 2 men advancing. The violence he unleashed was brutal, efficient, protective. When the men fell, he was already reaching for Isabella, hands running over her, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? I'm fine. Sofia is safe. My men are here. Dante pulled Isabella against him, felt her heartbeat, needed the confirmation she was alive. We need to move. Now. They extracted under covering fire, piling into vehicles, speeding away as sirens wailed in the distance. Sofia was reunited with Matteo at the safe house, the little girl sobbing in her father's arms. But Dante's fury was building, controlled rage that Isabella felt radiating off him as they drove to the penthouse. The moment they were inside, he exploded. "What the hell were you thinking?" His voice was raw. "You promised to stay in the vehicle. You were pinned down. Sofia was alone. Someone had to. But not you." Dante paced like a caged animal. "You could have died, Isabella. You could have been shot, killed, and I couldn't have done anything about it. But I wasn't." Isabella stood her ground. "We got Sofia out. Everyone survived. This time." Dante's control shattered. "You don't understand what it was like seeing you on that body cam. Seeing you in danger, knowing I might lose you." His voice cracked. "I can't lose you. You won't. Because I love you, damn it." The words fell between them like thunder. Dante looked as shocked as Isabella felt, like he hadn't meant to say it, like the confession had been torn from him by fear. "You love me," Isabella whispered. "Yes." Dante's hands clenched at his sides. "From the moment you said, 'I do' to a stranger. Maybe before. I told myself it was just the arrangement, just strategy, just convenience. But watching you walk into danger tonight, I knew. I love you, Isabella. And it terrifies me." Isabella closed the distance between them, took his face in her hands. "I love you too. You don't have to say that. I love you," she repeated. "I think I started falling that first night, when you showed me truth instead of pretty lies. When you respected me enough to offer a real choice." Dante kissed her then, desperate and relieved and full of emotions neither of them had planned for. The contract was gone, burned away by danger and choice and love that refused to be convenient. When they finally broke apart, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "This wasn't supposed to happen. Nothing about us was supposed to happen." Isabella smiled. "But I wouldn't change it. Even knowing the danger, the life I lead, especially knowing that." She pulled him closer. "We face it together. Remember?" "Together," Dante agreed and kissed her again. Outside, dawn broke over Boston. They'd survived betrayal and violence. But they'd found something neither expected. A love worth fighting for. They made love again as dawn broke over Boston, this time without pretense or contracts between them. Just two people who'd found something neither had been looking for, something that refused to be convenient or safe. Isabella traced the scar above Dante's eyebrow, and he caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. "I love you too," she whispered. "That's why I couldn't lose you. That's why I ran into that compound." "Reckless," Dante murmured against her skin. "Brave. Terrifying. That's what love is, isn't it?" Isabella met his eyes. All of those things at once. Afterward, wrapped in silk sheets, they planned their next move. Not as boss and contract wife, but as partners in everything. "Matteo," Dante said, the name heavy with conflict. "I have to decide what happens to him." "What's the traditional response?" "Execution. Betrayal, especially family betrayal, demands blood." Dante's voice was flat, reciting rules he'd lived by his entire life. Quick or slow, depending on mercy. But death. Isabella propped herself on one elbow, studied his face. "What does your gut say?" "That he's my cousin. That we grew up together. That his daughter is 7 years old and just got her father back." Dante closed his eyes. "But if I show weakness, if I let betrayal go unpunished?" "His daughter is safe. The Castellanos no longer have leverage." Isabella's voice was gentle but firm. "Send him to Italy. Exile. He can work off his debt to the family from there, away from the life that destroyed him. Give him a chance to be a better father." "You're making me soft," Dante said. but there was no accusation in it. I'm making you humane. There's a difference. Isabella kissed him softly. You're trying to build something better than what your father left you. This is how you do it. By choosing mercy when you have the power to choose violence. 2 days later, Matteo and Sofia boarded a plane to Italy. Matteo embraced Dante at the airport, tears streaming down his face. I don't deserve this, he whispered. No, Dante agreed. But Sofia deserves a father. Don't waste this chance. Isabella watched them go, felt Dante's hand find hers, squeezed tight. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For making me believe I can be different than what I was raised to be. The mercy didn't last. Victor Castellano's response came 48 hours later in the form of coordinated attacks across Salvatore territories. 3 businesses firebombed, 2 soldiers killed, shipments intercepted. This wasn't subtle maneuvering. This was open war. Dante's phone rang constantly. Reports of damage, casualty counts, operations disrupted. Isabella watched him transform into the strategic commander his father had trained him to be, but with a crucial difference. He asked questions, sought counsel, valued intelligence over immediate violence. Castellano's furious. Enzo reported at the emergency meeting. We took his leverage, freed the girl, showed mercy to the traitor. In his mind, we made him look weak. So he escalates, Dante said. How many families are watching? All of them. This is a test. If you can't defend your territory, they'll start circling too. Isabella sat in on the meetings now, no longer an observer but a participant. She noticed how Dante's men had shifted from wariness to grudging respect. She'd proven herself in the Castellano compound. She'd earned her place. We need intelligence, Isabella said during one particularly tense strategy session. We're reacting to his moves. We need to get ahead of them. How? Dante looked at her with curiosity. Let me work my networks. Event planning means I know people, caterers, vendors, staff who work in homes across the city. The wives of these families talk to their help, and their help talks to each other. Isabella pulled out her laptop. I can learn things you can't through traditional channels. Dante considered, then nodded. Do it. But with security. Over the next weeks, Isabella transformed into something neither of them had anticipated. She attended sit-downs with other families' wives, society events where Boston's elite mingled with its criminal underbelly. She used her event planning connections to build an intelligence network that impressed even Enzo. And she found exactly what they needed. Castellano's been skimming, Isabella announced at dinner 3 weeks into the war. She laid out spreadsheets, transaction records, testimony from staff in families Castellano partnered with. Joint operations with 3 other families. He's been taking 15% off the top, hiding it through shell companies. Dante studied the evidence, his expression darkening. Stealing from allies. The one unforgivable sin in your world, right? Isabella met his eyes. We can't beat Castellano through violence alone. He's too entrenched, too connected. But this turns his allies against him. You're brilliant, Dante said with genuine admiration. How did you find all this? His accountant's sister is a caterer I've used for years. She's been watching him cook the books. Didn't know who to tell without getting killed. When I reached out through my network, she took the chance. Isabella smiled. Event planners hear everything, Dante. We're invisible until you need us. Then we see everything. They planned the summit carefully. Invitations went to every major family in New England except the Castellanos. Isabella designed it like one of her high-end events, impressive, memorable, designed to send a message about Salvatore power and sophistication. The families came, heads of organizations, consiglieri, the power structure that ran Boston's underworld. They gathered in a neutral hotel ballroom. Isabella had transformed into something elegant and intimidating at once. Dante stood before them, Isabella beside him, and presented the evidence. Transaction records displayed on screens, testimony from witnesses via video conference, an undeniable pattern of theft and betrayal. Victor Castellano has been stealing from his partners for 3 years, Dante said, his voice carrying authority. The families he claims to work with, he's been robbing. This isn't business. This is betrayal of the most fundamental rules we operate under. The room erupted. Families who'd partnered with Castellano realized they'd been robbed. Allies became enemies in seconds. By the end of the evening, 6 families had pledged their support to Salvatore. Castellano was isolated, his power base crumbling. "Your wife did this," Marco said afterward, watching Isabella gracefully navigate conversations with family heads. "She just won us a war without firing a shot." "I know," Dante said, pride evident in his voice. But Victor Castellano wasn't finished. Desperate men make desperate moves. Marco intercepted communications 2 days later. "Boss, we have a problem. Castellano's planning something big. Targeting your territories, your businesses, and Isabella specifically." Dante's blood went cold. "What?" "Intercepts suggest kidnapping. Take his wife, you break the man." That's a direct quote. Isabella found Dante pacing his office like a caged animal. "I'm moving you to a secure location. Maximum protection. No public appearances until—" "No. Isabella, they're coming for you." "Then let them." She met his fierce gaze with her own. "Use me as bait. Let them think they can get to me. We set a trap. Catch them in the act. End this." "Absolutely not. I won't risk you like that. We're partners, remember? I'm not a possession to be protected. I'm part of this family, this organization. Let me help end this war." Isabella took his hands. "You'll be there. Your men will be there. Trust me, Dante." The battle in his eyes was visible. Every instinct screamed to lock her away, keep her safe. But he'd learned something from her. Strength came in many forms. And Isabella was offering him a tactical advantage he couldn't ignore. "If anything happens to you," his voice was rough, "nothing will. Because you'll be there." She kissed him softly. "Trust me." The event was a charity gala for children's hospitals. Isabella appeared with minimal visible security, playing the role of vulnerable target perfectly. She wore a stunning emerald gown, diamonds at her throat, looking like exactly what she was, a prize worth taking. Castellano's men moved in at 9 p.m. Isabella saw them coming, felt her heart race, but kept her composure. She'd coordinated enough events under pressure that performing under surveillance came naturally. They approached, polite smiles masking intent. "Mrs. Salvatore, Mr. Castellano would like a word outside." "How thoughtful." Isabella's hand went to her earring, the signal. "Lead the way." The moment they reached the parking garage, Dante's forces struck. They'd been everywhere, hidden, waiting. The fight was brutal and fast. Castellano's men never had a chance. But in the chaos, Victor himself escaped through a back exit, disappearing into the night. "He won't get far," Marco said grimly. "We have every exit from the city covered." Isabella coordinated the search from Dante's command center, her event planning skills translating perfectly to tactical logistics. She tracked patterns, predicted movements, analyzed habits from her intelligence gathering. 6 hours later, she found him. Safe house in Dorchester. One of his shell companies owns it. He thinks it's unknown. Isabella pulled up the address. He'll go there to regroup. Dante's assault on the compound was decisive, brutal, everything he'd been trained to be but tempered by the strategic thinking Isabella had encouraged. The fighting was fierce, but Castellano's remaining forces crumbled. By dawn, Victor Castellano was in custody, his organization shattered, his power gone. The judgment came 3 days later. A council of families gathered, the traditional tribunal that decided fates in their world. Castellano knelt before them, stripped of dignity, facing the consequences of his choices. Dante, as the wronged party, had the right to pass judgment. Everyone expected execution, quick or slow, but death. That was how these things ended. Victor Castellano, Dante said formally. You stand accused of theft from allies, attempted murder, breaking omerta, and declaring unjust war. The traditional sentence is death. Castellano closed his eyes, accepting his fate. The room waited. But I'm not interested in tradition. Dante's voice carried across the chamber. Permanent exile. Stripped of all titles, assets, and family connections. You leave the city, the state, this life. You become nothing and no one. That's my judgment. Shocked murmurs rippled through the council. Mercy wasn't done. Not for this level of betrayal. I'm building a different kind of family, Dante continued, looking at each family head in turn. One that chooses honor over endless bloodshed. One that recognizes strength isn't just violence, but knowing when to show mercy. If we only know how to kill, we're no better than animals. I choose to be more than that. The council deliberated briefly, then agreed. Castellano was exiled within hours, sent away with nothing, a living example of what happened when you betrayed the Salvatore family. At the celebration dinner that night, Nana Salvatore stood to toast. To Dante and Isabella. A true Salvatore couple building something new. Something better. May your partnership continue to surprise us all. The families cheered. Isabella felt Dante's hand find hers under the table, squeezed tight. They'd won. Not just the war, but something more important. They'd proven that change was possible, that mercy could be strength, that love could make a man better without making him weak. Later, alone in their penthouse, Dante pulled Isabella close on the terrace overlooking the city they'd fought for. The year is almost up, he said quietly. Our contract ends in 2 weeks. Isabella's heart stuttered. She'd almost forgotten. The arrangement that had started this all. What happens then? She asked. Dante turned her to face him, his dark eyes holding emotions he no longer tried to hide. That depends on what you want. The contract says we can walk away. No obligations. And if I don't want to walk away, then we tear up the contract and write something better. Something that has nothing to do with business arrangements and everything to do with the fact that I can't imagine my life without you in it. Isabella smiled, feeling the weight of choice and freedom and love that had surprised them both. I think we should definitely tear up that contract. Good, Dante said, and kissed her as the city lights sparkled below them. Because I'm not letting you go. Ever. 2 weeks. 14 days until the contract expired and Isabella could walk away with her settlement, her freedom, her life back. Neither of them mentioned it. The date hung between them like a blade waiting to fall. Dante buried himself in work. Meetings ran late into the night, business trips that kept him away for days. When he was home, he was distant, polite, careful not to touch her except when absolutely necessary. Like he was already practicing letting go. Isabella threw herself into rebuilding her event planning business. Clients who dropped her after the wedding scandal were calling again, intrigued by her connection to the Salvatore name. She took every job, worked 18-hour days, fell into bed exhausted. It was easier than thinking about what came next. They were living together like strangers. After everything they'd survived, the betrayal, the war, the love they'd confessed, they were falling apart over a piece of paper neither had the courage to address. Nana Salvatore arrived unannounced one afternoon, found Isabella in the rooftop garden, among the plants Dante's mother had loved. The old woman settled onto a bench with a knowing look. You're both being idiots, she said in Italian. Excuse me? That boy loves you. But he's afraid you only stayed out of obligation, out of gratitude, out of anything except actual choice. Nana's sharp eyes assessed Isabella. And you're afraid he only wants the stability you provide, the image of a proper wife, not the woman herself. Isabella's throat tightened. How do you? I'm old, not blind. I see the way you look at each other when you think no one's watching. I see the way you orbit around this conversation like it might destroy you. Nana patted her hand. Someone needs to be brave enough to speak first. But neither of them was. The silence stretched another week. Dante found Isabella in the garden one evening, 7 days before the contract expired. The sunset painted Boston in shades of gold and amber. She looked beautiful, untouchable, already halfway gone. "We need to talk," he said. Isabella's heart stopped. "Okay. The contract expires in 7 days. Dante's voice was carefully controlled. "I need to tell you something before that happens." She waited, dread pooling in her stomach. "I'm giving you your freedom. Complete, unconditional freedom." He pulled papers from his jacket. Divorce papers. Already drawn up. "The financial settlement is double what we agreed. $5 million. There's a penthouse in your name, a trust fund, complete independence. You can walk away from all of this. From me." Isabella felt like she'd been struck. "You want me gone? I want you free to choose without feeling trapped." His jaw was tight, expression carefully blank. "You never had a real choice, Isabella. I offered you marriage when you were vulnerable, humiliated, desperate. I took advantage. You saved me. I used you." The words were harsh. "For my own purposes. The fact that I fell in love with you doesn't change that I never gave you the option to choose me freely, without obligation or desperation." "So this is guilt?" Anger flared in Isabella's chest. "You're throwing away what we have because you feel guilty? I'm giving you what you deserve. The ability to decide your own life without me hanging over it like some debt you owe. I chose months ago." Isabella's voice rose. "When I stood beside you against Castellano. When I ran into that compound. When I told you I loved you. I chose you, Dante. You chose survival. Partnership. Not necessarily me." His control was cracking. "If you'd had real freedom, real options, would you have chosen this life? This danger? Me?" The question hung between them like an accusation. Isabella stared at him, hurt and furious and heartbroken all at once. "Fine," she said coldly. "If that's what you think, then maybe you're right. Maybe I should take your generous offer and leave." Something died in Dante's eyes. "I'll have Marco help you move tomorrow. Don't bother. I can manage on my own." Isabella walked past him, papers clutched in shaking hands. "I've been on my own most of my life anyway." The penthouse Dante bought her was beautiful, modern, elegant, everything she could want. Isabella hated it. She spent the week rebuilding her business with fierce focus, taking every client, planning every detail with obsessive precision. Anything to not think about Dante, about the empty space where he used to be, about how much it hurt to breathe without him. Her phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, nothing. She told herself she was relieved. Told herself this was what freedom felt like. Told herself the ache in her chest would eventually fade. She was lying. The call came on day 6. Jade's voice, tight with worry. "Bella, you need to get to Mass General." "It's Dante." Isabella's world tilted. "What happened?" "He got shot. Territorial dispute, I don't know the details. They're saying he's stable, but..." Isabella was already running for her car. The hospital was 15 minutes away. She made it in 8, left her car with the valet, sprinted through the emergency entrance. Marco stood guard outside a private room, started to say something about visiting hours, then wisely stepped aside at the look on her face. Dante sat on an exam table, shirtless, bandage on his shoulder, arguing with a doctor who looked ready to sedate him by force. When Isabella burst through the door, he went still. "What the hell were you thinking?" she demanded. The doctor took one look at her expression and quietly excused himself. Marco closed the door, leaving them alone. "Minor flesh wound," Dante said, but his voice was rough. "I'm fine. You got shot. Barely grazed. Because you weren't paying attention. Because you were distracted." Isabella's hands shook with fury and fear. What happened to the careful, strategic Dante who thinks 3 moves ahead? "You weren't there to tell me not to do something stupid." He met her eyes finally, and Isabella saw the devastation in them. "You weren't there, And I didn't care if I was careful or not. The admission broke something in her chest. You idiot. I love you. Not the arrangement, not the security, not any of it except you. I love you too. Dante's voice cracked. That's why I let you go. You deserved the choice, deserved the freedom to pick your own life. I made my choice. Isabella closed the distance between them. I chose you at that altar when you offered me an escape. I chose you every day after. I choose you now, you infuriating, self-sacrificing idiot. Even when I'm this? His hand gestured to the bandage, to the hospital, to everything his life represented. A killer? A criminal? A man with blood on his hands? Especially then. Isabella took his face in her hands, forced him to see her truth. Because I don't love you despite what you are. I love you because I see who you're trying to become. Because you choose mercy when you could choose violence. Because you're brave enough to change. Dante pulled her against him, careful of his injury, buried his face in her hair. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. They held each other in that sterile hospital room. Two people who'd almost lost everything because they were too afraid to believe they deserved it. Marry me, Dante said. Really marry me. Not a contract, not an arrangement. Just us, choosing each other. We're already married. Not like I want to be. Not with vows we mean, with rings that represent choice instead of convenience. He pulled back to look at her. Marry me again, Isabella. The right way. Yes, she whispered. Yes. 2 weeks later, they returned to St. Michael's Cathedral. Small ceremony this time. Just Dante Salvatore, Marco, Lucia, Enzo, and Jade. Father Michael performed the ceremony with obvious relief that this time, everyone actually wanted to be there. The vows they wrote themselves, no traditional scripts. Dante's voice shook slightly as he spoke. I vow to be worthy of your choice, every day, for the rest of my life. To honor your strength, respect your counsel, and love every part of you without reservation. Isabella's eyes shone with tears. I vow to stand beside you, challenge you when you need it, support you always, and love every complicated part of you. The man you are and the man you're becoming. New rings replaced the old ones, these engraved with the date they met, their real anniversary. 6 months later, Isabella's business was thriving. She planned legitimate events for Dante's companies, but she'd also become his unofficial consigliere, her strategic mind and intelligence network invaluable. The Salvatore organization was 90% legitimate now. Other families watched with grudging respect, seeing what evolution looked like. They returned to St. Michael's for a colleague's wedding. Sitting in the pew, Dante's hand warm in hers, Isabella watched the bride walk down the aisle. No regrets about how we started? Dante whispered. Not a single one. Isabella smiled. Best impulse decision I ever made. Second best for me. What's first? Deciding to keep you. He kissed her temple. Though technically you kept me. That evening in their penthouse, Isabella planned events at the dining table while Dante reviewed contracts nearby. Casual domesticity, the life they'd built from chaos and choice and love that refused to be convenient. He set down his work, watched her. She felt his gaze, looked up with a smile. What? Just appreciating my wife. Your real wife, or your contract wife? The only wife that matters. The one who chose me when she didn't have to. The one who stayed when I tried to let her go. The one I'll spend the rest of my life being worthy of. Outside, city lights twinkled across Boston. Inside, two people who'd found love in the most unexpected place held each other close. The story had begun at an altar with a stranger's offer. It continued at that same altar with a promise freely given. And it would last a lifetime, built on choice and trust and the kind of love that made even the impossible inevitable.